Hi friends, just wanted to pop in here real quick to let you know that in this episode we do touch on topics such as depression, overall mental health struggles, anger management, eating disorders, and sexual assault. So if you do not feel like you're in the right headspace to listen to a conversation that touches on those topics, no problem at all. Click off and we'll see you next time.
Please listen.
Does desperation work, or should we act like we don't care?
I mean, you could listen or whatever.
Like, it's
your choice.
Like, I don't need it, but like, it's fine if you do.
2, 3, 4. Who killed your darlings?
We don't know how to start this podcast.
Will that change? I don't know. We had trouble starting our other podcast too.
It's
hard.
It's hard.
Life is hard.
So
Welcome
hard.
back to episode number 2.
You're welcome.
Robyn is a child.
I'm 30 years old, everybody. Yes, welcome back to the second episode.
where we talk about just listen.
Just listen.
We have 2 different covers. Robyn has the original cover, which is by far the superior cover.
Obviously.
I love that Grizzly Bear is still up there.
Of course. When would he not be?
He's always with us.
Yes. Yes, we're so excited to talk about
Just Listen.
Just Listen, because this was, one of our all-time favorite
This is like my
books.
top Sarah Dessen book. It's this one and then this lullaby, like both neck. But like this one is first.
Yeah. I also loved The Truth About Forever.
I did too. Those are like my top 3. But like this one, just there was so much in it that I like when I reread it, I was like, I can see why I loved this book so much. There was so much that I related to.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about actually, because like I even had like a genuine like full emotional release after finishing the book. I had to like journal and cry for a good 30 minutes because it like hit me so intensely, because that's exactly it. Looking at it from the lens of being 30 years old and, you know, having gone to therapy over the years and done a lot of, you know, self-reflection and just looking at the dynamics I grew up in and everything in that way, I was just like, oh yeah, it makes total sense why this book just seeped into my soul in such a different way.
For those of you who don't know, Just Listen is part of the Sarah Dessen universe.
Yes.
Like her books, they're not like series, but they all interconnect. You see characters from other
It's almost like
books.
a little Easter egg.
Yeah, it's really cool. But so this one is about a girl named Annabelle. She's dealing with a lot of family stuff and like friend stuff. Like so she's the middle child of 2. She has an older sister. And
she's the youngest.
She's the youngest, excuse me. Sorry. She's the youngest. She has 2 older sisters.
Maybe in the future we'll pre-write these plot summaries.
Let's try this again. Okay. Let me start this over.
You're doing it. I didn't mean that as like you suck at this.
No, it's just hard. If you don't have
hard.
it, it is easier to pre-write it.
Yeah. Can I give it a shot?
Yes.
Okay. Just Listen follows 16-year-old Annabelle Green through her junior year of high school while she is dealing with dysfunctional and difficult family dynamics with her sisters, as well as dealing with a trauma with herself, which she will get into, that she experienced the summer before. She's very isolated.
And there's also issues like with friends at school.
Yeah, friends have left her side. She's very alone, and she ends up befriending another loner at the school named Owen. Owen. Who
We love Owen.
Who helps her on this journey to healing.
Yeah,
basically.
and he's music obsessed.
I wrote actually in my notes, I was like, is Owen the male version of a manic pixie dream girl?
Yes. But like not though, because he has depth to him as well. So it kind of starts out that way.
I thought maybe I have a misunderstanding of what the manic pixie dream girl is, but I thought it was just kind of a type of character. I didn't know it meant lack of depth to the character.
I think that the character, the Manic Pixie Dream Girl character, is like a lazy way of making a character interesting without actually, quote unquote, interesting without giving them any actual depth. So like,
true. So like,
it's very
if
surface-
Owen was just like obsessed with music and really
he was just like, I tell the truth all the time and I like music and this is me. Whereas he has like really, you know, he has gone on his emotional like healing journey.
he talks very openly about his therapy and uses the therapy terms that I really appreciated. Like, you know, that's a placeholder, meaning a word to get around telling the truth.
Yeah.
Like if Adriana was wearing a really like ugly sweater, she's not. But hypothetically,
beautiful, everybody.
your sweater's very pretty.
Thank you.
And that color looks really good on you.
Oh my God,
but
so
let's say it was like some bizarre choice.
Yeah.
And you asked me if I liked it. If I said, it's a really interesting sweater, but I didn't like it, interesting would be a placeholder.
Yeah.
Or if I said, it's something, or something would be a placeholder, right? So
you're giving me flashbacks to my mom.
so Owen definitely calls out Annabelle's very non-confrontational. She
And that's like,
is the
she's
definition of like a people pleaser, walking on eggshells, non-confrontational girl. And Owen is not, I mean, he's been confrontational in the past, but I would say he's just like a straight shooter.
Yeah. Like he's been too confrontational in the past.
Yeah, he has a history with anger management issues. He got in a fight with a kid at school, and then he punched a guy outside of like a nightclub or something.
I think he went to juvie for a bit and then he had to do therapy.
Did he go to juvie or did he just have to go to anger management?
I think he went to juvie for a bit.
Oh,
Did he?
I don't remember.
So he's like the complete opposite of Annabelle, who to cope with her family dynamic of, you know, her two sisters are very, very different people.
Yeah, her oldest sister
They're
is very
volatile.
Yeah, her older sister is very loud and outspoken and talks a lot, and her the middle sister Whitney is very quiet and angry.
Very angry. She's
Quietly
also
angry.
Whitney is going through an eating disorder. All of the sisters modeled.
Yes. And the mom was really into that. And the thing that I actually forgot when reading the book was that the mom slipped into a depressive episode after her mom died, and then bringing the girls to modeling things is what brought her out of it.
Yes.
I completely forgot about that aspect of it. I just remembered Annabelle wanting to quit and being afraid to disappoint her mom, which is definitely enough to make somebody anxious when their mom is so tied up in something. But the element of the depressive episode made it hit that much harder because there's that, you know, the messaging she received was, if my mom does not have this thing to do with us, she is going to be depressed again.
Yeah, like I need to do this for her.
Yeah.
And also why she is so non-confrontational is because her sisters were so confrontational, each in their own ways. And I remember like reading this in the book, I wrote the quote down or something, like she had to overcompensate and be nice so that she wouldn't rock the boat.
Yeah.
That was who she needed to be in order to sail smoothly.
Yeah. She's walking on eggshells.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she being so non-confrontational is kind of what led her to being so isolated and alone, because her way of dealing with problems, or the problems that she was dealing with, is to just not to push it down, to ignore it.
Yeah. Walk away from it, leave it alone, not if I ignore this, it'll go away type of feeling.
And who hasn't been there?
Dude, I still am afraid to confront people.
Same.
I'll confront a stranger, oddly.
Yeah. Or I'll do it first. If somebody, like if you were having, if somebody was mean to you and I was there, I would rip into that person.
Yeah. I'm really good at defending the people I love. I'm not good at defending myself.
Yes.
But yeah, it's very funny because just reading the book, I relate to that so much. Like, not to say I was never confrontational with my family or didn't have like big confrontational fights, but I definitely relate to the dynamic of there's a lot of tricky emotion going on here that none of us in this family know how to navigate.
Yeah.
So in an attempt to not step on a landmine, I'm just going to tiptoe very carefully and do my best to not cause any conflict to arise.
Yeah, like any more problems.
Yeah.
Like, there's already enough problems. I can't add mind to the mix.
I'm fine. Don't worry about me. It's good. And
I'm nice.
Yeah, and that's very much what Annabelle has to do. You know, like her sister's very loud and outspoken. Her other sister's struggling with a severe eating disorder, and the parents are very wrapped up in that. Like, before the timeline of the story begins, her sister is already living back home after treatment and still recovering.
And is still very, very upset and angry.
Yeah, and her, you know, the parents are trying to navigate, you know, helping Whitney recover, which is a lot in a situation like that for another sibling, because it's just like they have their hands full. Like, I'm not gonna, you just take care of it.
Yeah, they don't have room for me.
Yeah, and then Annabelle starts her junior year. Her friends, you don't find out, like,
You find out later
in the book, but it, like, something happened between Annabelle and her friend Sophie's boyfriend, Will.
I hate Sophie.
Sophie's such a... Okay, can we talk about Sophie?
Yeah, let's talk about Sophie, because I had a friend like Sophie. I'm very interested to dive into this.
I've definitely known Sophies in my life, too. So they met when they were little tweens, because Sophie moved to the neighborhood, and Sophie was always
a bitch.
And the thing that I noted, too, is because Annabelle had a lifelong friend named Clark who...
Love Clark.
Was, you know, they were both, like, in the same phase of life. And then Sophie came into the mix and starts mixing up with some teenagery energy. And something I wrote in my notes, too, was it's a really hard time, middle school to high school area, because did we talk about this on the last episode, or did I just say this to you? There's a
the maturity competition.
The maturity competition. And Sophie was, like, all ready to be a teenager and, like, sneak out and go hang out with boys.
Hook up with boys, and she's
Clark wants to still, like, just have her fun time playing games with her friends, like ordering pizza at home and watching movies. And Annabelle wants to dip her toes into the teenager experience.
Yes.
And when somebody does come in, even though they're bad people like Sophie, it's still, if you desire that, like, teenager life. Like, I remember wanting that teenager life at that age. I wanted to feel like a cool teenager.
Yeah.
So it's very alluring.
Yeah.
And then
she says it, like, right? She was like, it was something, like, electric about Sophie. Like, being with her was, like, so much more fun than, like, not being with her.
Yeah. And
it's kind of like a very, like, toxic, abusive relationship. Like, verbally abusive relationship.
Well, because also, like, Sophie definitely also picked friends who she felt superior to.
Yeah.
But in that process of Annabelle, like, dipping into that, she kind of ended up leaving Clark behind. And then her non-confrontational thing happened where she was too afraid to talk to Clark about hanging out with Sophie and doing all, and kind of ditching her.
She ditched her one time, and
and then it just, like, never recovered from there. But honestly, even, like, flashbacks to teenage Sophie and Annabelle's dynamic, I was like, this woman is not nice.
No. And again, like, she's really, really mean to Annabelle. Annabelle doesn't say anything because Annabelle has to be nice. And that was how their friendship started, right? Because her mom was like, oh, there's a new girl in the neighborhood. You need to be friends with her. It must be so hard for her. Like, moving to this neighborhood. She doesn't know anybody. So she kind of nudged Annabelle in that direction.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how they ended up falling in together. And Sophie kind of, like, nudged Annabelle to ditch Clark.
Yeah.
So that they could be cool. But, like, yeah, she is. You know what? She's not a girl's girl. She's not. No.
Because she, like, so you pick up on, like, maybe something happened between her boyfriend Will and Annabelle that pissed Sophie off. Like, we don't really know fully what went on quite yet, and we'll touch on that. But it's also that thing of when you're, like, if your boyfriend cheats, right?
Who are you going to be mad at?
Like, being mad at the woman that he cheated with is not productive.
No.
Especially because very often, like, outside of the circumstances of this story, very often that, like, that person has also been lied to and like doesn't know. Like, I have friends and I've known people who've been hooking up with a guy and then, like, find out he has a girlfriend. It's just like, he didn't fucking tell me. What am I supposed to do? Do a background check on every guy I sleep with?
That he's single, like,
and
what do you know?
But then, like, it's just it's easier to slut shame women.
Yeah, and also, like, Will has a history. Like, he has cheated on Sophie, like, multiple times throughout the book, right?
I don't remember that.
I think there was one time where like they were driving to this girl's house who had like hooked up and like Sophie keyed her car.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and she was like, it's really simple. If a girl has a if a guy has a girlfriend and that girlfriend is me, like you do not find yourself alone in a room with him under any circumstances ever at all.
Yeah.
These are the consequences. This is life.
Yeah. And it's just like, girl,
is he worth it?
Yeah, don't be with him. But so the story moves through like as Annabelle is totally isolated. She's
and it's going through like flashbacks too.
Yeah, and but in the present day, she does start building a lovely friendship with this guy Owen. We love Owen.
He's a king.
Yeah, and a Rolly.
Oh yeah,
I love Rolly.
Is it Rolly or Raleigh?
I don't know. Raleigh probably.
I always pronounced it Raleigh, but it could go either way.
Who
the fuck cares?
Whatever. We'll all be dead in 80 years.
Don't say that. 80 years. Wow, we're gonna be anyway. We love Owen.
We love Owen. What's cool is the first time, because they've been eating lunch in the same vicinity because they both eat alone for like a few days. And then a confrontational moment occurs after school with Sophie. And Annabelle ends up like shoving her, which is like good for you.
She needs more than a shove.
Yeah. But then she runs around a corner. She gets sick to her stomach.
Like, pukes her guts up.
And Owen comes because he saw that she dropped her notebook and he's coming to bring it. And he's being very kind to her. Mm-hmm. And then in that same moment, he finds out that she needs a ride home from school. So he drives her home. But first they pick up his little sister Mallory.
Okay, but let's talk about, there's one thing that I always like that always stood out to me when like he was helping her with the seatbelt in the car. Mm-hmm. Because like it was like kind of the seatbelt was funky.
Oh, you had to hammer it.
Yeah,
in.
so he was like, and I always remember like she was like he was holding the seatbelt like at a very polite distance from my waist, and I was like, oh,
just a respectful,
such a respectful man.
Yeah, he very very respectful man.
Anyway, his little sister,
I actually love Mallory.
I love her so much.
She's so
the complete opposite of Owen
and Annabelle. Because she like is so confidently loves what she loves, and she does not give two shits that Owen is just saying to her, this is fucking stupid, this is trash, this is bad. And
like,
she's like
she likes her pop music, like her top 40 pop music.
Bitsy Bonds.
Yeah. Bitsy Bonds. Like she's like, fashion is my life. Yeah. She's like going through all these different like phases trying to figure out her look, but she's just like, yeah, I don't care. This is me. Yeah. This is what I'm doing. Fuck you.
I love how, because she's in middle school, and I love how unapologetic she is, because I feel like so many of us, especially in middle school, you were like, I can't like the thing that they think is stupid.
Yeah, like, oh my God, he thinks this is stupid. I need to change my whole personality.
Yeah, but Mallory's just like, no, I like it.
And he's like, I made you. Like, she's so unenlightened.
Yeah, she's so.
That's how he puts it. He's like, he's enlightened when it comes to music.
Yeah, but some of the shit, I wouldn't even call what he's listening to music. Like, it was like bird calls at one point or something.
Like chants, crickets.
He's listening to very, very abstract things, but
he's like, I made you mix CDs. Like, he's like, the thing is, like, it would be one thing if she doesn't have any access to like real education. But he's like, I made her like mix tons of CDs to try and like broaden her mind, and she doesn't care, and she's like, yeah, your CDs are weird.
Yeah, and she just does not give a fuck, and I love her so much. And she's a fan of Annabelle's because Annabelle is a local model, and so she knows who she is, and she likes the school fall like commercial
there was like
campaign
this
that
commercial, the big commercial that Annabelle did before everything went down with Sophie, where it's like the girl who has everything.
Yeah, and Mallory's just, she's so cool, and she's definitely annoying, but reading it from this age, I was just like, I love this girl.
Like,
she's so
stay
cool.
confident, Mallory. Like, you do you.
Like, she even, like, when she's in, I just picture her in the backseat of the car when she brings up Bitsy Bonds and they're talking about music, and she looks at Annabelle and she's like, do you know that song Pyramid? And then she
starts singing it.
Like, climbing
Baby,
up,
I'm falling pyramid.
And she fully like sings it for her, and it's just like, that's a girl with confidence that I aspire to have. And she's a fictional like 13-year-old, but I love
that one
so
point
much.
where she was Annabelle meets Owen's mom, and like Owen's mom.
Oh, Owen, the mom is like a hippie.
Yeah, and like Mallory is like very like she's material. She's a 12-year-old. She's materialistic.
Yeah.
She likes things. She likes clothes, and she's like this. Their mom owns like a clothing store, but it's like a hippie clothing store.
Or are you gonna say like they're
vegan,
all vegan shoes? They're not
even pointy.
Yeah, I love that line.
Such a funny line.
Yeah. I just remembered something else I want to go back to, like talking about mean people and not doing anything about it that I thought might be interesting to talk about.
Yes, go.
So one thing that Annabelle talks about in regard to her relationship with Sophie, especially when she's like looking at the dynamics of everyone around Sophie after they've fallen out, like she stood by and witnessed Sophie be really cruel to a lot of people. And I think it is an interesting dynamic to talk about in regards to bullying. How at fault are the bystanders? Because I've definitely stood up for people in my life, but I've definitely more often been a bystander because there is safety in, at least it's not me.
Yeah.
It's something where like I think you have to give yourself a little bit of compassion there.
Yeah.
I definitely like
because I mean everybody's done it. Everybody's done it.
although one of my friends, Alexis, shout out Alexis, has always just been so like she's very outgoing and outspoken like our whole life. She has always just like gotten involved in shit, not caring what happens to her. Like she told me the story once. So we both did color guard in high school. It's like the flags and spinning.
Robyn also did like a color guard thing in the first play that we did together.
Yeah.
South Pacific. It's a terrible play.
Anyway,
but something beautiful came out of it.
Thank you. Our friendship.
But
we so and there was a lot of bullying that went on between like, you know, marching band kids, drumline kids, and color guard kids. And
fuck off, marching band.
Also, this story is so like 80s fucking coming of age movie because
everybody was bullying the marching band kids that they were bullying everybody else.
No, this situation is like so Alexis saw one girl who was on the color guard team literally being given a wedgie, and like a crowd of people
that is assault
were laughing. Yes, but also like how fucking like that shit doesn't happen. That happens in movies, you know? And she saw this happening.
The girl, you have my sister.
The girl was crying and these people were laughing, and Alexis literally walked straight into this thing. We were freshmen too, so like you're much more easily gonna get clobbered when you're a freshman. She walks in, she stops everybody. They all cuss her out, tell her she's a fucking loser, like, and she's just like, "Fuck you!" Like this isn't happening. And I respect that so much because
she sounds like such a badass. I've never met Alexis.
I don't think you have.
No, I haven't. But she sounds amazing.
She just like was always very unapologetically liked what she liked. Always
like Mallory.
Always stood up for people in that way. And I really respect that because me at like 14, I don't know. I would like to think in a situation that blatantly aggressive where somebody's crying, I would like to believe that maybe I would say something, but I don't know how. I can't say how much of an effect I could have had because I was so, you know, just like insecure.
Yeah.
And like afraid.
Same.
And I even like once I had like, if I was friends with some people who were major shit talkers, and I would definitely talk shit with them.
Yeah.
You know, and talking shit is very teenagery too. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where like looking back, it's just like
I think you also have to give yourself like hindsight is 20/20.
Yeah.
And also
Grown
compassion for
frontal cortex development.
Yeah, like for the little struggling babies that we were.
Yeah, because it's just it's hard because like it's one of those things where like I would love to believe that my whole life I was standing up for the underdog, but I would say I was probably standing up for the underdog maybe 1 out of 3 times.
Same. Yeah.
Versus like all of the times. And like I also like I wasn't, when I was friends with the people that would shit talk, I was still nice to the people that they shit talked about outside of them because I didn't like dislike these people. But yeah, it's just a bummer to look back and be like, oh, that was uncool.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's if you can find the confidence at a young age to stand up for people, I would say go for it.
Yeah.
But I do think that is an interesting discussion because I think a lot more of us can relate to regretting not saying something.
Kind of also like peer pressure.
Yeah.
To just
peer pressure is more than just like getting somebody to drink.
Yeah, it's also like getting somebody to be a total bitch to other people if they decide that they don't like them.
Yeah. Especially because like that loyalty thing in high school is a big deal. Like I remember a lot of dynamics being like, I'm mad at this person, so you have to be mad at them too.
Yeah.
And it's
it's
just
like you have to have my back.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like Sophie is a really interesting character because we've all like known, I'm so close to the microphone. We've all known a Sophie.
Yeah.
But I think also Sarah Dessen did a really good job of also like humanizing Sophie a little bit.
I wish she'd humanized her a little bit more in the present.
And I wish that there was like a kind of like a conversation between her and Annabelle.
Yeah, they never got a resolve.
Yeah, which is like fine because in life there is no like perfect.
They likely wouldn't have even just like a look from across a room or something.
Like because in life there's no perfect resolutions. Not everything gets you don't get closure on all things. But it would have been really nice for the development of Annabelle's character if she had this moment where she kind of had a like not like a reckoning with Sophie, but like
because Sophie kind of stays one note in the present day of the story. Like you get the little bit of like after Kirsten yells at her for yelling at Kirsten is the oldest sister after she yells at her for yelling at Annabelle when they meet and they Clark and them return her stuff that she left at the pool back to her and you can tell she's been crying.
Yeah.
Like she is just this like sad broken little girl with who's kind of absent parents who just moved to a new town, doesn't know anybody, and it's terrifying.
And so like her way of dealing with that was just to be like angry, to put on a show.
Yeah, and then she like carries that
persona
into her teenage years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have liked to see even just a glimmer of something seeing
because like once Sophie
change.
Figures out like what happened to Annabelle.
Yeah. I mean, there could even be a thing of like maybe we should probably talk about if it isn't obvious, Annabelle was sexually assaulted by Will Cash.
Yeah, which is Sophie's boyfriend, and so
Sophie caught them in the act at a party
and assumed that
assumed they were having sex, and then Will immediately just pulls a whole like she just like
she just jumped on me.
And is just being the most disgusting scum of the earth.
And also like Annabelle in that moment was so like
you're not gonna think straight.
No, like nothing can prepare you for a moment
trauma.
where that happens.
Also,
where
just
you
like,
are so violated.
I think any physical trauma, like you can't expect somebody's brain to operate normally.
Yeah. So of course, like when Sophie decides to confront her at the party, because Sophie being Sophie, she's like, I tell it like it is.
Yeah.
Like Annabelle freaks out, doesn't say anything, and leaves, and kind of everybody just draws their own conclusions from that.
Yeah. And then she distances herself for the whole summer from everybody as definitely as a protective mechanism to not process the trauma because that's a lot. But then of course, like, everybody at the school is like, wow, Annabelle's a slut. Like she slept with Sophie's boyfriend.
Sophie's the one who's talking loudest. So everyone's listening to Sophie.
And, Sophie's still dating Will. They're still together.
Is he in high school or is he like?
He's in high school.
Okay. I was like, why did I think he was like 18, 19?
No, I'm pretty sure he's still in
high
school. I'm pretty sure.
He might. He's a senior. He's a senior. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're juniors. Okay. But yeah, so.
Yeah, so that moment where, and like spoiler alert, like Will assaults another one of Annabelle and Sophie's friends later on in that year. And Emily reports it. And so like the whole story comes out about what Will has been doing. And he has a history. There's other girls that have come forward with stories of their own.
And Emily is the first person to approach Annabelle and be like, in more words than this, basically being like, I am 99% sure the same thing happened to you. So if you want to talk to this lawyer and be a part of this case, like, do it because like, I believe you basically.
And yeah, that was a really interesting like dynamic because of the when Annabelle is like, after all this has come to light and Annabelle is kind of like watching Sophie, she's like, Emily. She was like, yeah, I was alone after that happened. And like Emily was always surrounded by somebody. And she's like, it didn't even occur to me that like I could have told somebody about this.
Yeah.
It didn't occur to me that I could say what happened and people would believe me.
Yeah. And that's a sad fact, I think, for specifically sexual assault cases, but I think also trauma in general and being in situations where your feelings have been invalidated a lot of your life. I think a lot of people, and I relate to this too, just have a desperation for being believed that our experiences were what they were. And particularly women in general struggle with that in all facets of trauma and experience. It's just like,
because a lot of people tend to be like, oh, they're just so emotional.
or like, you know,
so sensitive.
There's a lot of manipulation people experience in emotional abuse, gaslighting. And so then I think women get the brunt of that. Not to say that men don't, but it is such a thing of just like, no, this happened to me, or like this fight went this way. Why won't you believe me? Like for everything in life, like, oh, like, or, you know, because women are very intuitive. And I think even with like having like, let's say like a kind of like an unsettling conversation with a dude at a party, right? Nothing really that blatant happens.
But there's something about it.
Your spidey sense is just like, that was weird. I've had a lot of those conversations and like shut it down. And then like a month later been like, no, that guy was a fucking creep.
Yeah.
Like, but it takes me so long because I've been so conditioned to believe that I don't, like, what I'm experiencing isn't the reality.
Yeah.
That I'm very much like, no, I'm just being a little like paranoid or sensitive or whatever. And then it's just like, no,
you know,
that was
I'm overreacting.
Yeah,
I'm the problem.
Yeah. And then it's just like, no, that like that guy was creepy.
Yeah.
Or even in more positive aspects, that guy was flirting with you. And I don't know. I can't tell.
And apparently, sometimes at Trader Joe's, they're being paid to flirt with you.
They're always paying to flirt. I was devastated.
It's really sad because Trader Joe's hires some really cute bag boys.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Oh,
but anyway, so that's a whole thing. And I think one thing that Sarah Dessen really got right to was like looking at yourself and your reflection after a traumatic experience. I found really resonated. And like when, you know, at the beginning of the book, Annabelle talks about seeing that commercial that she was in that was shot before everything went down.
It was the day before everything happened.
And she's like looking at it and she's like trying to find a physical difference in her. Mm-hmm. And I found that really relatable. Just like looking at yourself in the mirror after you've experienced heavy things for the first time is a really profound experience. And I liked that she
included that.
Circled around that.
The fact that there's no real conversation between Annabelle and Sophie after everything happens, even if, you know, Sophie never would have changed, you know, I still think that would have been worth having.
Yeah.
Especially because the whole book is about Annabelle learning how to use her voice and
even
speak her truth. It would have been, I think it would have made it more effective to have her confront Sophie about everything that she's done.
Yeah, like Sophie doesn't have to have a full 180 in character development either. Yeah, it would have just been interesting to see something. Like I said, even something as simple as like if Sophie went to the trial, was she there? I don't think she was there.
I don't think she was there. Or was she?
Also, talk about a court date happening so fast.
Right? Yeah. So literally like
3 days after they fucking reported, there's like
it was like a week
trial.
or two. It was like a couple weeks
quick,
after.
Whereas like in reality, it would be like 6 months from then.
I also love that everybody believed Emily.
Yeah.
There was not one shred of doubt.
Yeah. I think because other women jumped up so quickly too.
Mm-hmm. Like even if other women jump up quickly, people will still find a way to be like.
Of course. But I think it unfortunately at least gives community for women, and community brings power for women. When you don't have that, it becomes very complicated. But yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to see. Like, yeah, even just if they exchange a look at his trial, like if Sophie went to his trial or something, just some sort of thing. But Sophie did kind of disappear into the back.
Kind of faded into
She and Annabelle's kind of switched places in a sense.
Yeah. She faded into the back. She was alone.
Oh my God, maybe that was the point.
That's a good point. Because
my
I was like,
God.
after that, when Annabelle finally talks, then she has a support group. She has Emily, she has Clark, she has Owen, she has her family. And every time she sees Sophie after that, they never talk, but she's always like, Sophie's alone.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Oh my God.
Maybe that's what she was going for.
Oh my God. Am I a genius?
You always were a genius. You never weren't a genius.
Thank you. But yeah, can we talk
about
about
the sisters?
Yes, I did want to, because this will be shorter than that.
Go.
Briefly touch on Raleigh and Clark.
Yes. Oh my God, so cute.
So Raleigh is Owen's friend. Owen and Raleigh have like a radio show that they do Sunday mornings at 7 a.m.
Where Owen plays his very
weird
music
for
enlightened people because it's at like 3 a.m.
7
whatever. It's 3 a.m.
Very, very different hours, but
So
early. And Raleigh also works at a self-defense shop. He's the attacker, and he wears all the pads and stuff. And
so
he's
that
just,
like women just attack
and
him.
he's such a cutie, such a safe.
He's like
man.
a cinnamon roll
He's
hero. That's like a trope. Like the soft and gooey on the inside.
He's the type of guy
like
who
golden
like,
retriever.
Golden retriever guy. You immediately just feel totally comfortable and safe with him. And he tells Annabelle that he met a girl who they were doing some
like
at the mall. They were like doing something to like promote the classes. And a girl came up and just like socked him in the face in his like attacker gear.
Yeah, it was like you get one free punch.
You get one free punch. And he was in love with her after she punched him, and he had no idea who she was or what her name is. And then they run into her at where were they?
They were at the club.
Oh, they were at like this club waiting to see a band show, and like Raleigh's like, oh my God, she's here. And Annabelle looks over and is like, you mean Clark?
And he's like,
you know her? And they're not talking again yet. And Annabelle's already having a really fucking bad day.
She's having the worst day.
Emily, like she heard about what happened with Emily in the reporting, and she had to do a whole fashion show thing, and she wants to quit modeling.
And
like,
it was poor Annabelle. I just want to give her a hug. She was having like the worst time, and it was like she was reliving the moment.
A lot of trauma, and not realizing that she could have a support system.
Yeah, and she was not in the best zone for that. And Raleigh's like, this is perfect. I have been waiting for the perfect moment to introduce myself to this girl. You're it.
Yeah, you're my
in, Annabelle. You can do this for me. And she's like, you don't understand.
She finally just says like, okay, I can't promise it'll work, which I kind of like. I find that a really interesting thing for her to do because she is so not confrontational. I feel like she would have been more likely to just tell him, like, be like, that it's not going to work. It's not going to work. But she actually does end up going up to...
And I think that shows a little bit of her growth as
maybe.
well.
But yeah, she walks up to Clark and is just like, basically like, I know you hate me.
And Clark was like, you think I hate you?
Yeah, which was interesting. But then Raleigh comes up and starts, being charming Raleigh. And then Annabelle starts to walk away, and Clark immediately picks on what's going on and is like annoyed. But they do hit it off.
They do.
Which is great.
Now, I think they hit it off afterwards, but she was like, when Annabelle left, because she was like, what the fuck, Annabelle, you're leaving again?
Yeah.
Is that what you're really, Annabelle?
Yeah. And then after that concert, Annabelle just like ditches, and then she ditches Owen there. And that's kind of where their rift before the resolution.
Third act breakup.
Yeah, happens because sweet, sweet Owen is just like, whatever it is, like, you can fucking tell me.
Yeah, he's like, I'm so mad at you right now. But
you won't
I'm
let
here.
me be your friend.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Tell me what's wrong.
Well, because Owen, like we said, is a straight shooter, and he
is always honest.
But he's also just very sweetly like, this is all fucking on you in the nicest way, because he's like, I'm telling you that I'm here to support you as a friend. I can take it. Like, I've shared a lot with you. You're not letting me be your friend.
Yeah.
And I heard something really interesting on another podcast once. It was like a clip that came up on TikTok. If I can find it, I'll like link them below. But because a lot of us, I think, struggle to ask for help, don't want to be a burden, things like that. And then this woman said she tends to isolate a lot when she's feeling things. And one of her friends said to her, it actually does kind of hurt my feelings that you won't let me be there for you as a friend, because I want to do that. And I thought that was a really interesting reframe of that, because as a friend who supports friends, I want my friends to tell me when they're having a bad time so I can support them.
Yeah.
And it's hard to remind yourself of that as when you're struggling, because it's just you're like
so
like everybody's busy, like I don't
you're
wanna,
so wrapped up in what you're going through that it's hard to see the forest for the trees.
but you should we should all remind ourselves that like the good friends in our lives want to help us and
the
want
Clarks, not the Sophies.
Yeah, the Clarks, not the Sophies. They want to be there for us during hard times. Like if I call you crying, you want to be there for me, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Like, but it's
which
so
we have done before.
Yes. But it's so hard. And what I do really like about Owen in this moment is he's basically saying that to her. He's just like,
even though he's so mad at her.
he's so mad, and he's giving her feedback of just like, politely, this is your fucking fault, you know? Because like, I'm here. Hi.
Yeah.
I'm here for you.
And it was like,
hello.
and it was also like their whole relationship up to this point is like Annabelle feels like she can be a different person with Owen. She's kind of like starting fresh with him.
He's also teaching her how to be
he's teaching her how to be
honest.
honest. And she's like, in her mind, I think she's always like, oh, I wish I could be the person that Owen thinks I am, but I'm not.
Yeah, she feels like
deep at the core of me, I'm not.
Yeah, there's even the instance where, because Owen's job, he delivers pizzas. He delivers a pizza to their place when their parents are out of town.
Love a little pizza delivery boy.
And Whitney answers the door, and she's chatting with him, and then Annabelle comes up because like Whitney was wearing like a band T-shirt, and they started talking about music.
Whitney's almost enlightened.
Yes, and Owen says something to Whitney that like I forget what he says.
He's
exactly.
like, Annabelle's like,
Annabelle's
she's a straight shooter. She doesn't hold anything back. She's ruthless.
Yeah, she's ruthless. She hates techno.
Don't we all? I don't like techno.
I don't like techno either. I agree with Annabelle. But there was that moment of Annabelle feeling insecure in that moment because she's like, that's not who Whitney knows me to be.
Yeah, because like when Owen said that, Whitney kind of looks at Annabelle like,
yeah, like, whoa, okay. Annabelle never says anything.
Annabelle never talks to me.
Yeah. Granted, Whitney doesn't talk to Annabelle.
No.
So
Whitney doesn't talk to anybody.
No, and I kind of respect her.
Yeah. Oh, sweet little Whitney.
But yeah, it's so interesting. And
so like in that moment when Owen is like, tell me what's wrong, be honest with me. And she's like, I can't. This is who I've always been.
Yeah. And it's so heartbreaking because you also she hears through the grapevine that while they're not talking for however many months they don't talk, what is it, like a month or two?
It's like a month.
Yeah. Owen is still worried about her. Like, because Clark reconnects with Annabelle and she's like...
Kind of.
Well, she reaches out because she saw Annabelle leave the library very upset after Emily approached her about the lawyer.
Yeah. And she's like, Owen and I are worried about you.
Yeah, well, because she's now hanging out with Raleigh. And
they're going to be together forever.
And she says to Annabelle, like, he's mentioned that he's worried about you, and like seeing you so upset, I am too. Like, yeah, and she's like, "Are you good?" And actually, very proud of Annabelle. She says no, and then Clark's like, "Do you want to talk about it?" And she's like, "No." And that honestly, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's a very fair thing.
But it's like just to say, like when somebody asks you, like, "Oh, how are you doing?" Most of the time, and then she mentions this too, like how many times a day that she lies when she realizes that Owen always tells her the truth. I'm like, when someone asks you, how are you doing today? More often than not, we're just like, oh yeah, good. And most of the time, especially if it's at work, you're like, oh, how are you doing today? I'm like, I'm doing terribly. I hate everything. I want to cry. I'm dead inside. That's what I want to say.
Yeah.
But I don't say that.
I think it depends on the context of the how are you,
because who you're talking to.
Yeah, because if the cashier at Trader Joe's asks me how I'm doing, I'm not going to be like, not good, and here's what's going. Like, no. Yeah. I'm just going to be like, fine. It is interesting though, because as I've been personally working on like my own emotional boundaries and like codependency, I sometimes feel like I get extra offended when people spill their guts to me in those situations because I don't feel allowed to do that.
Yes.
As somebody who has struggled with a lot of codependency and feeling like other people, like I've spent a lot of my life feeling like other people's struggles and problems are suddenly my responsibility to fix and make better. And I've been working on
similar ways, but I think different like reasons.
Yeah. And so I have worked a lot in my life on trying to just be comfortable with the discomfort of a friend having a hard time and just like, it's okay that they feel bad. You don't
need to fix it.
It's not their emotions are not my responsibility.
Yeah. Sometimes all you can do is just listen.
Just listen.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You guys, I'm so smart.
But
I'm so profound.
Yeah. But Yeah, Clark does reach out to her in that situation. And then I think that does start to her and having the card. And like, if I do actually want to get involved in this trial, I will have to tell my family about what's going on.
That was heartbreaking.
Yeah. But earlier in the story, Owen gave her a stack of CDs. And the last one, he said, this is the one you have to listen to last. It's the most enlightened. Don't think, or don't think, don't judge, just listen. And
that's why they call it that.
And during their time apart, while they're mad at each other,
she starts listening
to all of them, and she gets to the last one, and it's silent. And she has this like full emotional breakthrough about the silence of like, oh, was he trying to get me to finally listen to the voice inside my head?
Like
the
listen
real
to
me?
me, like because all through the book she keeps like there's this refrain that keeps going through her head where it's like, shh, Annabelle, it's just me. And we find out that that's what Will said to her right before it happened.
Yeah.
And so like I think her way of explaining it, you can tell me if I'm wrong, like of the silence of the CD is like all of this time the voice that was saying that was her.
Yeah.
Trying to get her to listen so that she could
use her voice.
Boom.
Yeah. And so she goes to the radio station the morning after the show to talk to everybody, and she's talking to Owen, and he's pissed, and he's like letting her know it. He's
like,
letting
rightly so though, because she ditched him.
Yeah, and he's what I do also another thing, the millionth thing I love about Owen.
We love everything about Owen.
Is that he is mad at her and he's letting her know it, but he's also not telling her like get the fuck out.
Yeah,
which I really appreciate. He's like, just say whatever.
Yeah, he's like, what do you want?
Yeah, you like tell me whatever.
Tell me what's going on.
And so she tries to start talking about the CD with him, and they start kind of arguing, and then he's like, what the fuck? There's nothing on this fucking CD. And she's like, wait, what? Isn't that the point?
Was so funny. So like, and there was another thing where Owen is like, I can't stand silence.
Yeah, he has to
hate
on
silence.
Music.
And the reason why is because like his parents are divorced. Congratulations. And like he's like the reason why he listens to music so much and he has to like fill all of these silences is because when it was silent he could hear them arguing.
Yeah.
And that's where like his music obsession kicked in.
Yes.
So like Annabelle is like, I want you to listen to something. Just listen. And she like plays the CD for him and he's like, what the fuck is going on? There's nothing. He's like punching the thing and he's like, there's nothing playing.
Yeah. And it's just funny because he also made the CDs for her so long ago that he doesn't
remember what he put on
it. But then like in that moment too, like she has her like breakthrough moment where she probably looks like she's about to barf again because that's her trauma response. But
honestly, same girl.
But she sits down and she's like having a moment, and Owen very sweetly at that point like dials it back and just looks at her, and he's just like, wait, are you okay? And then she just word vomits everything and tells him everything.
She's the first person. He's the first person that she tells.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And
he has the exact right response.
I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Boom.
Yeah.
So simple.
Done.
That's all you need.
And then he's like, now go home and tell your parents.
Yeah.
Because you have to call this lawyer. You just told me, tell your parents exactly the same way you told me. They'll be fucking okay.
And he's like, you won't be alone. I'm going to be there at the court. I'm coming to the court date. I'm going to be there for you.
Yeah, I'll be there for you, which is so sweet.
I'm just going to cry. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Side note, I had a court thing happen that I won't go into too many details about, but I was joking with best friend of the podcast, Jared.
Best friend Jared. I was going to go to that court date and then I got COVID.
But I said, I made a joke about if I got murdered. And I was like,
I can just picture Jared's face with you saying
about
that.
about like a trial if I got murdered. And Jared was like, I'd go to the trial. And I was like, oh,
I'd go to the trial too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Would you go to my trial?
No. I'm kidding. Because I would be the one to kill you.
Ooh.
Plot twist.
Plot twist.
No, of fucking course I would. But very sweetly, yeah, he's like, I will meet you at like the fountain in the like quad across from the courthouse. And I got very emotional when reading during the parts of her telling her family everything.
I did too. I think I cried when she told Owen.
Yeah.
I cried when she told her family.
Because I also loved the way she described her family processing the information.
Yeah. It was like what? Her her dad and her sister.
Well, I also loved when she walked into the living room. She says, like, I basically locked eyes with Whitney because she's the strongest of us all.
Yeah.
And that is true in a sense. Whitney's at least been forced to do the most therapy out of the family, I think. And, you know, obviously dealing with a mental illness that's severe, it does come with a lot of strength to pull yourself out of it, even if you were forced into recovery first.
Which she was, but she eventually,
that's a resilient motherfucker right there.
Yeah.
And
Whitney's a badass.
Whitney is a badass. And
so is Kirsten.
Yeah. And they're both very strong women. And she locks eyes with Whitney and then she just tells them everything. And I think her biggest fear too, also just with having any problems, is her mom slipping into a depressive episode
She was
again.
like, I can't tell my mom anything, especially the assault or the fact that I want to quit modeling because my mom won't be able to handle it.
Yeah.
I have to protect my mom.
Nothing can be wrong in my life because my mom is fragile.
Yeah.
And she has her hands full with Whitney. Like, I hated seeing her struggle with Whitney struggling.
And she's already like dealing with enough. If I put my problems on top of it, she will break.
Yeah, but she specifically notes that, like, her mom surprised her in that situation and just put her arm around her and just, like, let her talk. And, like, Whitney and the dad go to find the lawyer's card to call the lawyer to get more information.
And, like, her older sister's, like, holding her hand, crying and, like, holding her hand.
Yeah.
And then her mom is just also, like, holding her.
It would make
but
me
not crying.
incredibly uncomfortable if somebody started crying as I shared some trauma. But that's my own problem. That's the codependency thing, probably, because it's just like, oh, I'm making you feel a bad
like,
feeling.
oh, I'm okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Everything's fine now.
Yeah.
Look how happy I am.
I mean, it's a very beautiful and empathetic because it just means that person loves you so much, right? Like, I get it.
Yeah.
But because I don't have very much experience sharing my own struggles in this way, I think I would just be like, stop it. But it's very cool because I think that's something too. I think we decide very often that we know who people are and we know exactly how they're going to react, whether it be family or friends or whoever.
Especially with family.
Particularly with family.
You're locked into those roles.
Yeah.
And more often than not, that's how your family sees you for, like, the rest of your life.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remind yourself, obviously, like, if you need to uphold boundaries for your emotional well-being, you do not have to tell your family anything.
No.
But I think it is important if you want to share things with your family and you're afraid to remind yourself that they could surprise you, you know? Her family handled this very well. And they were there when she told the whole story on the stand. She had to point and say, that's Will Cash.
Oh, God. That was so hard.
Yeah. And Will, she notices. So before the trial, she doesn't see Owen where he says he's going to be. And she's like,
he's not there.
Oh, that's weird. And then when she sees Will, he has a big stinking black eye. Ooh. And she's like, oh, Jesus. And then they leave the courthouse and her family is like, oh, should we, like, go, like, grab lunch? Which I loved the normalcy of that.
Yeah.
Like, I loved it. They're just like, should we grab something to eat? Like,
yeah. Her family is like, they did a lot of things wrong.
They did a lot right.
Also did a lot of things right.
Yeah. And I like
that's very realistic.
Yeah. Just being like, okay, that was a lot. Let's go grab a bite.
Take 5. Let's get a smoothie.
Yeah. And she sees Owen like across the parking lot and she's like, yeah, give me a sec. I'm going to go talk to him. And I love that, like,
I'm going to go talk to my lover.
Well, I love that, like, as she's walking away, like, she hears her parents say, like, where is she going? I don't know. Like,
like, who's that guy?
And then Owen's all squirrely and probably the most nervous
she's ever seen him
the whole book. And
he's, like, very fidgeting. And then she notices.
And then she's calling him out on all of these placeholders that
he keeps using placeholders. Like, I had some stuff.
I had some stuff. And she's like, stuff. And then he's like, well, I got, like, this thing happened. Like,
he's like, I had a relapse.
Yeah. And then she's like, what the fuck? And basically
she sees the scraped. I think she sees, like, his knuckles are scraped.
Yeah. And she's like, what? And then she starts to put 2 and 2 together because Will has a black eye and Owen has anger management issues. And basically what he did, and I know this isn't the right move, but I fucking love it.
It's beautiful,
he
though.
Goes to find
Will's in
Cash.
this shitty band.
They're
playing the night before his trial?
Yeah.
The night before his trial.
So
what are
clearly
you
Will
doing,
doesn't
you fucking
give a
piece
single
of
shit. But what I also love about it is before he's even confessing what happened, he's shitting all over his music.
He's like, they're in the worst band
it
ever.
Sucks so much. And it's just like, dude.
Like, that's the worst part.
Yeah. He's almost more horrified with how bad his music is.
And then, so he's like, he goes to the show and he's like talking to Will after. And Will's like, he's just like, he was just acting like nothing was wrong. And he was just like, hey, man, how are you? And I was like, how are you? And he's like, as he was walking away, he's like, I did it. I punched Will Cash in the face.
And look, I don't support violence, but I support violence against rapists.
Always punch a rapist in the face.
Always. And that is actually in the Bible.
Rapists and Nazis. Those are two people you should always punch in the face.
But it's just so like...
It's like he's been so controlled and
even keeled
ever since he was in juvie.
And it's also kind of beautiful that how much he cares for Annabelle
is that he breaks that for her. And I think that's like, that's a really important moment.
He hit a boy for me.
I know. It's so like cliche, but it's a really important moment for him because all through the book is Annabelle freaking out and Owen being like the rock.
Yeah. And Annabelle's the one in this. And then when they switch places, Annabelle's the one calling him out on the placeholders and being squirrely and beating around the bush.
Yeah.
And
then like, so there's this moment where he breaks a little bit. And it's really beautiful.
And then he's also very sad because he got grounded because of that. And he had a really hard time getting his mom to let him go to the court thing.
Like, so he could see Annabelle.
Yeah, which is one of those things where I do understand not wanting to air out all of your friends' dirty laundry to your mom.
But in that case,
if it's a public thing,
and be like,
if I was Annabelle in that situation, I don't think I would have been mad at him for sharing that with his mom.
Be like, I need to be there for my girlfriend's rapist's trial.
Because any parent in that situation, like I bet if I was grounded and I had promised a friend I would go to this thing, if I said to my parents, hey, my friend is going to court because she was sexually assaulted and I want to support her, they would be like, fine, go.
Yeah, that's not like a fun time for anybody.
No, and like it's one of those things like, okay, you promised your friend you would support them and this is a lot, go. But I can also understand him struggling to like be straight with his mom about
so like
that.
I think it was probably a case of he didn't tell her what was going on.
Yeah, but then they kiss.
So beautiful.
After. I also, one thing we didn't touch on is the music in a car wash scene.
Also, we didn't touch on the fashion show that Mallory has.
Oh yeah,
that was right before their first kiss.
Did they actually kiss or not totally?
They like
Mallory interrupted.
It was
them.
like they were like just.
They were very close.
It was like the lip brush.
But the we're officially dating kiss is
the car wash.
No, I think it's this kiss after the court.
Oh right, you're right.
But
the car wash kiss.
Yeah, so they do clearly like each other. Annabelle goes to return his iPod to him at his place, and then Mallory ropes her in because she's having like a
slumber party.
A slumber party that's model themed, and like it was just so. Little girl, somebody's crying. Mallory's being too controlling.
And Owen's like, it always ends. And like,
Owen's the photographer.
Owen's the babysitter.
And the photographer for these girls.
And it's so funny because it's such a realistic moment of like,
older brother,
like, he's the babysitter. He's like, you don't want to be here. It always ends in tears. Always.
Yeah. And, but Annabelle gets roped in because she's a real model.
And she's like, we have a fashion consultant now.
And I think Annabelle also, I think she secretly really enjoyed it because it was I think it's what her mom thinks modeling is for her, what they were doing, but because it was the fun of modeling of just like having, fun with friends and feeling pretty.
Yeah.
And then, I also sweetly love that, so Owen snaps a picture of her while she's there, and he makes a comment about like her modeling photos don't really look like her. That photo right there, how she looks there looks like her. She's very casual, no makeup. And then he gives her that photo before the trial.
Oh my God!
And he's just like, remember this girl. Like this girl is strong. This girl can do this.
And that's you. You are this girl.
And she gives a look one more time at that photo before she goes downstairs to tell her parents what happened.
Beautiful.
And it's so
this
lovely.
is such like a profound book too. Like it really touches on a lot of issues that teens have.
Yeah. And
representation matters.
Yeah.
And this is a reason why it's important to have these kinds of books where you read about people going through this thing, and even if you don't go through that thing, or if somehow you end up going through that thing.
Yeah.
Which was in my case when I was rereading it.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of, and that's why I had I cried so much after I read this book.
It's the first time or the
when
recently?
I was rereading it.
Yeah, me too.
It's just, you're not alone.
Yeah. Well, that's also, I think, the core of what I love about storytelling is that experiences are different. The emotions underneath are all the same and we all feel it. You don't have to have gone through exactly what somebody's gone through to feel it. I think that's also why novels and stories and things that people write tell a lot about the author than not, because I've written stories about things I've never experienced, but I've felt the emotions that person was feeling.
And I think that's where the truth is, you know?
Exactly. Like we all understand emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So we can all, well, every single person who at least has empathy can understand it. But
that's why even if the protagonist is a woman, you should be able to relate.
Yeah. That's,
women and men are not that different.
No. And I would argue men are more emotional than women.
I mean, look at Owen.
Yeah. Well, it's that thing too of like when people say that women are super emotional, it's just like men start fires when their sports team loses.
Yeah.
Like yeah. Excuse me?
Men get rejected by a woman
and then
murder people.
Men start wars.
Men are so insecure about their masculinity that they do awful, awful things.
Yeah. And I heard recently a clip of...
You heard it here first. We hate men. I'm just kidding.
I kind of do, though. But I heard a clip, too. It was a gay guy talking about just the idea of femininity and, like, homophobia. And he said he thinks a lot of homophobia is rooted in the fact that men just hate women.
It's true.
And I was like, that makes so much sense.
There's
because
a lot of, like...
gay men tend to, I'm not saying always, but, like, there's based on the, you know, like heteronormativity, wanting to date men is a feminine thing.
Yeah.
It makes total sense that also a lot of homophobia is rooted in this idea of men actually just really fucking hating women.
Yeah. Because it was always like, you know, it was...
Will Cash doesn't like women.
Will Cash has a lot of issues. I just remember when I was growing up, you know, in the 90s and early 2000s, like being a tomboy was more... like, what's the word I'm looking for? Socially acceptable than for a boy to, you know, want to play dress up or wear makeup.
It was much easier for women to dress more masculine.
Yeah,
than
and
for
it's
a
kind
man
of just
to
like a
dress
cute,
more
like,
feminine.
oh, you know, that's my daughter, you know, ha ha ha.
Yeah,
so cute. But like, if a guy, if a little boy wanted to do that, it was always like a really big deal.
Yeah, it definitely became easier for women to dip their toes into masculine areas versus men being able to. Nowadays, I think men are in the same place that women were in like the early 2000s of like being able to dip their toes in femininity, because I've seen a lot of really cool things of like straight dudes like trying on a dress and being like, I feel pretty.
Yeah, exactly. Dresses make you feel pretty.
It's so fun.
Makeup makes you feel pretty.
Yeah.
Nail polish makes you feel pretty.
Yeah.
Like, you do you.
Yeah. And like,
if you're not a Nazi or a rapist, you're good.
Yes, that's going on your tombstone. So, I wrote down a quote that I like.
I have a couple quotes too.
It's about Owen in therapy.
Okay.
When he's trying to get Annabelle to role play, confronting to tell her mom that she wants to quit modeling.
I think we might have written the same quote.
He says, I'm excited to see. Everyone wanted me to be their mother in role play. I just think that's such a funny line, because he's like, oh yeah,
you think I can't do it? I can
like,
be a mom.
Actually, I was the most popular one to be the mother in role play, and I find that so cute. And he really like is trying to get her to do this role play because he's like, it fucking helps, dude.
Yeah, it's like it does help.
Yeah, it's great. What'd you write down?
I wrote down a couple ones, but
from this scene though, I want to know.
Yeah, I think it was right after this scene. There was something frightening about Owen Armstrong, He was honest and expected the same from everyone else, and that scared me to death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. He I also love the rings Owen has on his fingers.
yeah.
He has some rings on one hand. They say go fuck yourself.
And then the other one says, or not.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's important to know your options.
Yeah. And because the go fuck yourself was when he was deep in his anger spiral.
Pre-anger management.
And then after anger management, I think Raleigh got him the or not ones, I think. Which is so cute.
Love Raleigh.
Yeah. And I also really love how the comment story of my life comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Because Owen first says story of my life to Annabelle, actually, when she's getting a ride home from him when they first kind of really have their first conversation.
Yeah.
And she needs a ride because Whitney borrowed the car to have her first day of freedom. Also, another quote I wrote down when Annabelle asked Whitney if she's excited about her day, and Whitney says, "It's a day I used to have a whole life."
Ugh, that got
hits
me
real hard.
Oof.
But then when she's getting a ride from Owen, she's like, yeah, my sister's being a pain. And Owen says, story of my life. And then Annabelle says that to him a couple other times.
Yeah, she kind of she takes it on.
Yeah, exactly. She absorbs that and says it to him a couple times. And then he actually ends up saying to her, you say that a lot. And she's like, well, you said it to me first. And he says, which I find really interesting because I think two things can be true at the same time.
It's true.
But he says, better than what I'm going to reiterate, that basically implies that nobody has a unique experience.
Yeah.
And she says, I think I have it written down actually. 155, or is your book different?
I think it should be the same.
Yeah.
You say that a lot, What? Story of my life. You said it first. And he's like, when you think about it, that's kind of a weird thing. I mean, it's meant to be sympathetic, right? But it's kind of not. You're telling the other person there's nothing unique about what they're saying.
Yeah. And then Annabelle says, but you could also look at it the other way. You're saying no matter how bad things are for you, I can still relate.
And he's like, so you're saying you relate to me. And then they flirt and it's cute. Anyway, keep going.
But I thought the story of my life thing was interesting because I think both things are true. I think it depends on just the messaging somebody receives, which is why being a human being is so fucking hard.
Yeah.
Because we can all take bad messaging from stuff that was never intended to be bad. And I've received these types of things both ways, right? I've definitely been oh my God, you fucking get me. But I've also had times where I'm just can we not give any of my experiences
I was
room?
I thought we were talking about me. I don't want to co-opt this, but I was I really need to just say my piece.
Or even just simple things of people who have felt invalidated a lot in life. It's just sometimes I just need to be seen and heard in what I'm saying. And I don't need you to be yes, and here's how I relate to that.
Yeah.
And I think it's a struggle
that everybody goes through.
That everybody has to figure out as the friend supporting somebody, which version of me do they need right now? Mm-hmm. Which I also think we should normalize asking.
I have started to do that more, especially with learning with communication with my own mom, who's also a fixer. Mm-hmm. We're both we want to fix and help everybody.
Yep.
So I think what's really helped us in our conversations, and this has carried over with me and Eric and me and my sister, is what do you need? When you're I'm going through a hard time, I'm okay, what do you need from me right now? Yeah. Do you need me to give you suggestions?
Do you need advice? Do you just need an ear?
Yeah. Do you just need to vent and get it all out?
Yeah. And that's so important too, because I find my knee jerk is to jump to advice for solutions.
Same.
And because, I do have the fixer thing. Let me fix your problem. Let me fix your problem. Mm-hmm. It's my responsibility to fix your problem.
There was one time where Eric was going through a really hard time and he was talking to me about it. And I was we need to.
Did he kill a guy?
No. I can't say it. I was we need to I need you to stop for a second because I'm really mad at you right now. And
Wait, who said this?
I said this.
Okay.
I was I'm really mad at you right now, and I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense, and I need to sit with this and figure out what's going on.
That's a great thing to say.
And be because I was the more he was talking, the more I was getting upset, and then I realized I was getting upset because he was upset. Mm-hmm. I was mad that he was upset and I couldn't fix it, and I was we came back after we came back to have that finish that conversation afterwards. I was I'm really sorry. You always validate my emotions. You always allow me to feel what I need to feel, and I need to give you the same thing.
Yeah. It's hard though, especially when you and I have grown up in environments where when somebody's feeling what would be classified as a negative emotion, it's unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
And
like sometimes there's support and sometimes there's like, why
well,
are you
also
feeling
it's just like sometimes people like, is this going to turn into chaos?
Yeah.
And so I don't want you to feel this way because I'm triggered, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, that's irrational. Like I need to figure that out for myself and that's not your problem.
Yeah, because you know your boyfriend, you know that he does not have behavioral patterns you've experienced in the past. But yeah, it is just such an interesting thing of that dynamic and how there isn't one answer.
No, because sometimes people need different things from the same person at different times.
Yeah, like, and it's so okay when a friend is confiding in you to just say, do you want me to help you find a solution, or do you just want to vent and decide this person's a fucking asshole? I can be there for you. I can talk I can talk you with that. We can do that. And it's so important because sometimes I don't want to hear I don't want to hear it. I just need to decide this person is the worst and is out to get me. I just need to be a victim right now.
Yeah.
Don't let me be a victim all the time and forever. Mm-hmm. But it's I just need to be a victim right now, and then I will circle back when I want help finding a solution to this thing.
Or like sometimes I find that I know what the solution is. Mm-hmm. Like deep down, I truly know what I need or have to do.
Yeah.
But I just want to get all of my feelings out first before I can do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being
a person is hard.
Yeah, being a person is hard. Let's touch on the sisters. We should wrap up soon.
Yes.
The sisters, the broken arm story.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
So in the book, so throughout the present day of the book, Kirsten is off at school, figuring herself out, and she finds she really likes this film class, and she makes a short film about the day Whitney broke her arm when they were kids on Annabelle's birthday. And they were riding bikes, and she had to get Whitney back to the house. They had to get Whitney to the doctor, and then they got back with a cast on Whitney's arm just in time for cake on Annabelle's birthday. Mm-hmm. And Annabelle watches it several times when Kirsten sends it to her. And then Whitney is starting this new therapy with a therapist that they call Wackadoodle. And she's supposed to journal and write things about each year of her life. And she mentions the age that she was when she broke her arm, and Annabelle says, well, you broke your arm at that age. And she goes, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And then she starts writing this whole thing about it. And then as the family is all healing and resolving, and Whitney's found this passion for cooking and gardening, and she's doing so much better. She's much more out in the world. They go to an open mic over the holidays when Kirsten's in town, and
Whitney
does a reading
of the day that she broke her arm.
Yeah. And it's this really profound moment too, because it's also, I think, the most you hear from Whitney this whole goddamn
book. It's true. She doesn't really talk. She's more she's always a presence.
Yeah.
But she's not, and that's the whole thing with the sisters too, where Kirsten talks too much. That was always the thing. And Whitney doesn't talk at all. And the whole book is them, among Annabelle's struggle, is them finding balance with that.
Yeah.
So Kirsten finds a film class where she learns how to show, not tell.
Yeah.
And Whitney learns how to communicate and speak her feelings and her truth. And I thought that was also a really interesting balance, because that's Annabelle's trying to find that balance too. Mm-hmm. They're all in such all over the spectrum on
totally
confrontation, too much, too little, and then there's no in between.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really interesting juxtaposition of Annabelle's.
Yeah. And it's just it's another cool healing moment for the sisters as they
because Whitney and Kirsten have a really volatile relationship.
Yeah.
Not only because they're so different, but because Kirsten was the one who told her parents that Whitney had an eating disorder.
Yeah, she's which mad respect for her just being screaming from the rooftops.
And
there's a problem here, guys.
And the whole thing was her parents weren't really taking it seriously until it was almost too late.
I don't think they weren't taking it seriously. I think it's a bit of a protective denial thing.
No fault of the parents, because
the mom is just oh, she's just so stressed. She just has so much going on, because Whitney's modeling career really was taking off. She and Kirsten moved to New York. And
They were living together, bad idea.
yeah,
It's not
not always a good idea to live with your sibling.
Like, I love my sister, love her to death. We would not be able to live with each other. We could live next to each other.
Yeah.
We could not live with each other.
No, I feel the same way. I have a lot of friendships too, where I'm just like, we couldn't live together.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just like you're a great friend, love you, couldn't live with you.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah. So, and Kirsten and Whitney are closer in age than with Annabelle.
Yeah.
So the closer you are in age with your sibling, I think opens the door for more fights. Like both of my sisters are 2 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And so we definitely fought growing up a lot. We butt heads a lot. It was really easy because we were so close in age. Not to say that you can't fight with your sibling if you're
it's like, I think
ages
mine was
apart.
like the opposite experience because my sister is 4 years older than me.
Yeah.
And we fought a lot when we were younger.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we got older, we started to get along more because our life experiences kind of started to.
Yeah. I think that's normal in both situations too. But I think the fights just hit a little bit different when you're closer in age because it is like you get super territorial about your stuff and all that jazz.
Makes sense.
And, but that was just such a cool moment with the sisters and getting to do like, I don't know, have this really cool healing moment for all three of them.
And it was also interesting, like the way memory works too, like the way Kirsten remembered that day differently than Whitney remembered and how Annabelle remembered it differently as well.
Yeah.
It was just really good. This is just a good book, guys.
It's just a fucking good book. And, it's, I had a big emotional release after reading it.
Same.
I'm also on my period.
I'm on my period right now too.
Oh my God, we're synced. So, damn, well, should we just end it on our menstrual cycles?
Yeah.
If you guys have any thoughts about Just Listen and anything you want to share.
Or your favorite Sarah Dessen book.
Yeah, leave it in the comments below. And we will let you know as soon as we do what book we're covering next.
We may or may not know, but that's for you to find out.
Yeah. We can't
Wink.
We can't do everything for you.
I just winked really weirdly.
Can you wink like a normal person?
No. No.
Like I felt like that's not you trying to wink weird. It felt like that's you just winking.
Yeah. No, it's very much just like that. Oh God, Catherine Hahn in WandaVision, where she's just like, that's how you have to wink.
Marvel?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a meme. It's a meme.
Okay.
Wow, I'm more in touch with pop culture than Robyn. That doesn't usually happen.
I don't care about Marvel.
So we're going to end on that. We're going to end on you not caring about Marvel.
I don't care about Marvel, and thank you for listening.
And shut up and listen.
Shut up and listen. What is that?
That's from Princess Diaries.
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you. I was like, it triggered that thing in my brain where I was like, I'm almost there.
Yeah.
Okay. Shut up and listen.
Another book that I would love to talk about. We're definitely going to.
Yes. But in the meantime, thank you everybody for watching and listening. You can follow both of us on Instagram. You can also follow the podcast at the Who Killed Your Darling podcast and subscribe on YouTube and rate and review on Apple Podcasts. Yeah. You can watch us. You can listen, watch anywhere. And
please listen.
Does desperation work, or should we act like we don't care?
I mean, you could listen or whatever.
Like it's
your choice.
Like I don't need it, but like it's fine if you do. Now we're just Sophie.
I know. Sophie's worse.
Yeah.
She would be like, you guys should listen because I'm the best and you're all shit.
That's true. Well, I don't know, listen or don't.
We're doing so well.
Thank you. We'll get better at this. Please.
I think we're great.
Please stick around.
Yeah, please. This is going to be a journey for all of us.
Maybe someday we'll have like segments.
One day.
An organization. All right. Love you very much. Thank you and goodbye.